resume recording. So we just missed all of that. But that model is a lovely model for what happens in life and how we might deal with it. So Class Janssen, The 4 Apartments of Change. So it's one that I keep. There are many pink sheets that I've written about noticing, awareness, naming, really asking the questions of how is this serving me, that sort of stuff. So the 3 bits, get it, get over it, get on with it, would be the 3 scaffolds.
Okay.
Under which there's stories, practices, ways of doing things and understanding where you are. I would ideally love to have this, this is the mind at work, with a lovely, gorgeous quote book that you'd give to somebody who was just going through the shit. And you want to give them something and you give them this beautiful photo, gorgeous, imagey, quotey book that accompanies all of this. And I could see some other merch coming off it as well, but that's how I'd like to do it. I think the best way, and certainly the way that illustrates a lot of these things, is to tell vignettes of my story or other people's stories, because there are so many moments in my life where it's been really, really tough, and it's how you get through that, and then how you create. And as I said to you before I was 50, I did my 50-year life plan. My 10 years of doing the most I could possibly do on this planet is now. My 60s, between 60 and 70 is my biggest giving back years. So how can I be in that mode? And this is part of being in that mode. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be an epic book.
Oh, you reckon?
Yeah,
It wasn't meant to be epic.
No, it will. It's great. So there's going to be, I think it's going to be very powerful and very impactful. And I think I'm sure you can already really see the people, and probably the women in particular, that will really benefit from this.
Absolutely. And it's people who, I'm thinking more middle-aged, because it's sort of, that's where you get some of your wisdom. Although for me, a lot of my searching started in my mid-20s. But it's more likely to be I'm stuck, I'm 40 or 50, I'm stuck, I'm middle ages, I don't know what I'm going to do, and haven't found my purpose in life, and I don't know what I'm going to give or how I'm going to do it, and shit just keeps happening to me. So yeah, that's a bit of it. So I've written a couple of paragraphs about that in another brain dump that I did earlier on.
Right. Okay, so tell me a bit more about your pink sheets, and if you feel you've got kind of an ace that you're going to put in the middle of this or not.
I don't think I've got an ace particularly, Mick. I'm just having a look at some of them. I think that I've got definitely some pink sheets that talk about the awareness, the naming, the questions, the how does this serve. So no particular ace though. It's sort of like there's one here about noticing, awareness, naming, understanding leads to better outcomes, and it's like the best intersection of intricate gears and wheels of a timepiece when the difference of each cog fits in and complements each other. And there's other ones where I talk about the highest universal energy and flowing, the letting go and the letting be occurs when you actually get all this stuff and when you just let it happen. And when you're trying to be in control and holding on and the anxiety and all that sort of stuff, it's the blocking of that flow. So there's other things that are in there that I can sort of send you, but it's about life on purpose. When you actually get what your purpose is and you can be on purpose. Now, for some people, it's a lifetime search to find out what that purpose is. For others, it's just noticing that when everything is in flow, that's when I'm doing my very best. That's being who I am at my very best. I can send you those pink sheets, but there's no particular ace that I think is the gem of this. I would think that of all the stuff that I've read, the Forums of Change is one that I adore.
Yeah, I think the Forums of Change can definitely be a great story to tell, and that's one of the powerful things about your stories. I think we'll definitely get an arc of your story. That's what's going to hold the whole book together and give people that kind of red line. But at the same time, other people's stories, other people's kind of IP that you obviously, talk about who they are and all of that. But that all helps give reference more to what you're talking. So I think that's great. And those rooms and the way you articulated that is your own interpretation of what he's doing as well, which adds more
totally
value.
Yeah. And there's other people that I've seen use it, so I actually will use it with a community as they go through, when something rotten's happened to that community. So I use it in a whole range of different settings, but I definitely use it in the leadership setting. And there's some other people who I really value who introduced me to that through some writings that they did. So that everyone's got an interpretation of it, but I have an interpretation that fits with my worldview.
Right.
Yeah.
If we came back to some of those kind of headlines that you were saying, so like naming, what are those ones? Just run me through those again.
Certainly. I'll grab the pink sheets so I do them in order. Just scanning my pink sheets now. I closed my book, which was really silly. Here's one that actually I might even photograph it and send it to you. Have you got your near your email at the moment, or
yep?
Or do you want me to send it by text?
Email's fine. I'm on the computer here, so I can.
Okay, so this one, I think I'll just stand up and photograph it. May actually bring it all together. So I'll send that to you. Isn't this amazing technology that we can just have this conversation like this? This is great.
It is. It's absolutely incredible. It's the stuff of fantasy.
It is. It's stuff that we thought about in the Jetsons and Dick Tracy and all that sort of stuff. I'm much older than you.
It's me, George Jensen.
Pardon?
I remember the Jetsons well.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Jetsons?
Yeah. Okay, so that should come through to you now. And this is where I've just done it in concentric circles. And the noticing is that, oh my goodness, what's actually happening? Having a look around and scanning, and it's almost like just taking stock, stepping outside of the situation and stepping outside of yourself, which is really hard in the high emotion, and saying, what the hell's going on here? What is it? Where am I? Where am I feeling? What's actually happening to me? So it's a step outside and notice. It's the deep breaths. The next bit is the awareness, so bringing it to mind. So I've noticed, and now I'm actually bringing it to mind and really being aware of the influences around me, the influences internally. I've got that much to my mind. So it's that being in the moment, the being aware. So the noticing is the stop, take a breath, I've got to come back in. The awareness is actually being present and connecting with what's going on. The naming is not so much a judgment of what's happening, but giving light names to things. I am noticing that my body is tense. I am noticing them out of flow. I am noticing that whenever I hit this particular situation, this is what's going on around me. So it's not a judgment. It's got a noticing element or a naming element. So you can actually name those things. The understanding is the bringing it together. What am I learning from this? What's this actually telling me? How is this serving? All that sort of stuff. And then I've said there are 3 keys to this. The one key question is, where am I now? The next one is, what am I learning? And then, how does this serve? Bloody hard questions. And this is the bit that I was telling you about being in the emergency room. It happened much more quickly that time for me than it's happened for any other time. So to go back into that story, last year in March, I was running full pelt, which is my normal way of doing things. I was heavily involved in the election campaign for Voices for Indi. It's a group that I was part of, that we were changing the way politics is done in Australia. And this was our second election. I was heavily involved in it. At a pre-meeting meeting with friends, felt my back. I didn't even know it was my back. I really had trouble getting up out of my chair. So a friend of mine said, why don't we walk around to my office, which was only a 500-metre walk, and stretch out your back. We thought it was a back, thought it was a hip, didn't know what it was. I got about 100 metres to the front of one of the most public buildings in Wangaratta, couldn't go any further, absolutely stuck. It couldn't move in any particular way, still chatting away, still having fun, and then the pain started to set in. We called a friend to bring, we actually called my chiropractor, who said any other day I'd be fine, but this is the day that my baby's being christened. Otherwise I'd be there. We called another friend and said, can you get a hot pack for me and some ibuprofen or something, and we'll get out of this. And we called my partner and said, might be a good idea to come round. So my partner and my friend with this other friend turned up at the same time. By that stage, I couldn't even move to the railing, which was less than a metre away. And we had to try and pivot me to get me to move to the rail. By this time, my friends tell me I'd gone absolutely white. When Anne turned up with the ibuprofen and the hot pack, she said, this is an ambulance job. This is not anything else. We called the ambulance. The ambulance turned up, and they couldn't get me into the ambulance. So they had to put a morphine drip up while I'm standing hanging onto this rail for grim death, and by that time a lot of pain. And they strapped the board to my back, and then they flipped the board back into the ambulance so I could get into the ambulance to get to the hospital. The morphine must have been bloody good, because by the time I got to the hospital, the ambulance driver was saying, and what were you doing this morning? And I said, oh, I'm involved in Kathy's campaign, and this is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing. And I had signed him up to the campaign before I got into the hospital. And in the emergency ward, they realised that this was either going to be massive surgery or it was going to be, we didn't know what it was going to be, and called a surgeon in who was a heart surgeon, but she was on call that weekend. When between the morphine injections, I actually got that moment of clarity of, shit, what's happening to me? Why am I in this situation now? What's going to happen to me? What have I got to do about it? How can I put this all together, whatever it's going to be? And it was that I needed to change what I was doing in my business and my life. Thought leaders had been on my mind for 18 months, so immediately I decided to sign up. That's what I'm going to do. Whatever this is, surgery was for me going to be the last option, and I wanted to be able to recover and do the recovery really well so that my body was together and that was learning from the situation. So all of those were decisions made in the emergency ward. I ended up being in hospital for a month, between two hospitals. The surgeon was fantastic because she decided that surgery, we could try and work through that if I had really good rehab and all those sort of things. So by the time I got to the private hospital, I got back into the arms of my gorgeous team from my physio, where I do Pilates. So they were my team. And there was debates going on, like I could get out of bed to go to the shower in the morning, but I needed help with all of that. I got to the stage where I could walk 50 steps on the walking frame, no more. The doctor wanted me to walk 100 steps. The physio saying 50 is plenty. Went on and on and on. I got home after a month in hospital, still on all these opioids and drugs and goodness knows what, and had to walk in the back here on the walking frame, but that actually took some time to get to bed, all that sort of stuff. Then it was high-level treatment, so physio all the time, hydrotherapy, any work that I could do to strengthen my body, to make my body much better. So it's been a whole heap of stuff. My doctor, unfortunately, died. So that was a whole other story. I won't even go into that. But I got onto my normal doctor, and she's going, I don't know what's happened, but this is the sort of injury. So I had a prolapsed disc. She said, this is the sort of injury that stops people from going back to work for years and years and years. And you've been able to do that in a very short period of time and totally change what's happening around you. So I cut down my staff, managed on what I was doing, got into the thought leaders practice mode, and have come from there. So I got back to work in July, August last year. I'd signed up the minute I got home for thought leaders and started doing the work. My first immersion was in August last year. So it's come from that. Yeah. So but the quickness of the cycle, still a disastrous thing to happen, but the speed of the cycle was much quicker than I've had in any other time in my life. And that was because I could ask those questions like, where am I down now? How is this serving me? What do I do about it? All that sort of stuff.
So when you think about that story, what themes do you think that story represents? Like, courage, leadership. All stories have themes, and if we can nail
definitely. I think it's the impetuosity and the journey of the person who does too much. It's then the all the work that I've done on myself, and the self-awareness and the leadership work and the resilience work helps me ask the right questions. And then it's doing the work. The work has got to be done. So, just when you make your decision, how can I do the work and do it with clear intent and find out what this is telling me and be in the service. If I must be off purpose, I must be off track, something's not right if this is happening to me. So how do I find my way back onto the path again? How do I use this moment as a moment of awareness and awakening in order to get there?
So I think that that story is about crisis, for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So what I want to do is to try to identify stories before we go into the teaching element of it. Just look at the story on its own, and if we can kind of go, what's this really about? Because the person listening or reading the book, that's what they're going to kind of look for. So if I was reading your book, I'd be thinking, oh, this is the big moment. This is not the incremental slide. This is the...
Yeah, this is the big hit, big hurt.
Exactly. So big hit,
which is sort of what I call it, when it just seems to come absolutely out of the blue and you get the big hit, big hurt.
Yeah, exactly. So this story then can frame that kind of element of the book, I think, because you're not going to get much bigger than that, are you? Maybe
actually, my life's been much, much bigger than that. That's a minor story in the scheme of things.
Okay. It's good. It's good. That's interesting. So I think that what I want to try to do is we'll talk through loads of stories, but also then reflect on them in 3 different ways. So one is around themes, and that's just going, okay, what do we think this is actually about? Because that can help us get clearer in terms of the process. Also then, why does it affect me? Like what's the emotional effect on me? And because a lot of them will be your own stories, that'll flow really easily.
Yes.
But also, like, for example, the 4 rooms, you still need to go through that process. Why does this affect me? So you've got to bring yourself into every story, even if it's not your own, for the audience to understand it. Definitely. And then why is it relevant for the reader? So we've got to make sure that we're on purpose for the reader, because obviously we're serving those guys through the book.
Yeah.
So if we just look at those 3 questions, that's kind of the frame that I'll do through the interviewing process.
Beautiful. That serves so well, because I think I was saying to you, I don't want the selfishness. I mean, I think it has been an extraordinary life, which I've been very blessed to live. but it's been bloody tough. But I don't want to be self-indulgent. It has to be told because there's a purpose in telling it, and it may trigger something in someone else. So what is it that triggers for them that moment of change or of being able to get what's happening?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So that service, like, why is it relevant? Why is this on purpose for the reader? And what is it about? What does it affect me? What's the emotional impact? So all of those things, I can only be the person I am. So I often say when I'm doing my leadership stuff, we are the sum total of our life experiences. But more importantly, it's what we make of those life experiences. And we can rewrite that. So if you've got a story from 16 that you've been hanging on to that is not serving you, you can go back in and reframe that and really see how it served you and how it's made you the person you are now, to a point where you can thank that experience for actually having happened. And it's when you can do that that you get it. That's the value of all of those life experiences. It's not a litany of one train wreck to another train wreck. It's how has that served me? What bit of me do I owe to that experience? So very much like the turning point experience that we did when we first started Thought Leaders, what are those moments? What have they done? That's in a way that, and I run another exercise that I do all the time in my leadership training called Turning Points, where I get people to write down half a dozen of those moments in life, that the sliding doors moments. Have you ever seen the movie Sliding Doors? Yeah. So where are those sliding door moments? And sometimes you'll know them because they've been an active choice, and sometimes it's because what's happened to you. And what is it about that you now owe in your life? Where does that come in? Where does that sit? How's that served? So it's reframing, so you get the how does this serve?
Yeah. And what comes to mind for you in your own experience? What was a moment that you lived through that kind of experience?
Oh my God. In my life, that's such a big question, Mick. I think that I might do a linear little journey about some of those points for you. Is that going to be okay?
Yeah, sure.
So I come from a family where we have bipolar disorder in our family. My grandmother severely affected to the point where she used to have electric ECT treatment. And, you know, the kids, she'd go into hospital and she'd have to have the ECT. My grandmother, an incredibly intelligent, beautiful, wise woman, but these moments of